Hi Jan. In this world shaking hands is not allowed, so I'll just point at myself. I'm Ryan Strutton. I'm really excited to have this opportunity with you today.
Great. I'm excited to hear about what brings you here and how you can contribute to our school. Since I'm a learning theory fanatic, I'd love to hear more about your own learning theory and how it will impact your practice. What is learning to you?
Well, Jan, as I have just recently completed a learning theory class, I feel like I have a stronger grasp on my own learning theory, but know that it will continue to change throughout my career. I have defined what learning is to me through a variety of different channels. My prior experience, prior knowledge, and what I have learned about learning theory have all contributed to my view of learning. Learning is a combination of cognitive, emotional, environmental influences and experiences for acquiring, enhancing, or making changes in one's knowledge, skills, values, and worldviews.
Okay, so how does learning actually occur?
My focus on learning sways mostly towards constructivist theories, but would include certain aspects of behaviorist and cognitive theories as well. Depending on the need and situation of the class, multiple theories would be used. Ideally, learning would occur in a social environment, experimenting with each other to gain knowledge and think critically. I really gravitated towards the experimental education theories of John Dewey, Paulo Freire's praxis model, and Joan Wink's transformative model she explained in her book called Critical Pedagogy. They all were great proponents of experimental education. To reinforce this idea of experimental education, structured play would be heavily involved in the learning process. I learned that from Raquel Kessler in her book The Soul of Education and Jean Piaget. Finally, learning would incorporate some aspects of using prior knowledge from Jean Piaget's theory, scaffolding from Levi-Vygotsky, building intelligence from Gestalt, and some operant conditioning from B.F. Skinner.
Great. I really love those books and theorists. So, how do you view knowledge?
Knowledge happens in a variety of ways. It is an active process. Knowledge is real life or lifelike. It's cooperatively working together with your peers or on a team. It's getting your hands on it. Touching, feeling, and really seeing your hands do the work is knowledge. Sometimes knowledge is goal-oriented. By reaching and surpassing certain goals or levels, you gain knowledge. Sometimes knowledge is behavioral and needs to be reinforced. Sometimes knowledge is more brain-based and memorization is needed.
So what's your view of the learner?
First of all, the unique needs and backgrounds of each individual is celebrated and used to teach others. The learner participates in real activities with real consequences and will discover and explore new ideas. They interact and play structured games with each other. They get motivated to reach goals and surpass them with and without help from others. The learner is able to process information and understand each part. Sometimes a learner's positive or negative behaviors are reinforced.
Great. So what kind of role does the teacher play?
The teacher would play an active role as more of a facilitator in the classroom. The teacher provides an experience and sets the scene of the environment. The teacher not only shares their own knowledge, but participates as a learner and listener as well. They observe the learners and provide encouraging feedback, helping them when they need it. The teacher sets goals based on the needs of the class and the students. Positive and negative reinforcement would be used, along with some direct instruction. Finally, understanding the whole student and their needs is very important. I want to reiterate that my current learning theory will be constantly changing, and what I may say right now may not be what I believe in later. I don't have a lot of teaching experience, so I'm not familiar with what exactly will work when I'm in the classroom with different students from year to year. What I do know is that my current learning theory consists of multiple theories that I've learned and used. It is what I truly believe in right now and from what has worked in my prior teaching experience.
I understand that. As my own learning theory beliefs have changed over the years. Now that you have explained to me your own learning theory, tell me how it will impact your practice. How do you plan to design your class environment?
Well, Jan, because my learning theory is based on more constructivist theories, My classroom would have an interactive and social atmosphere. My classroom environment would have a similar look and feel to the 3 models of pedagogy that Wink described in her book. Majority of learning would occur within the transformative and generative models, but would include the transmission model as well. For example, students could start out in the transmission model where pre-selected, ready-made knowledge is banked into a learner's mind. This would involve some direct instruction, operant conditioning, and assessment of prior knowledge and experience. Following that, would be the generative model and where most of my teaching experience is from. Learners would be assigned to groups based on their prior knowledge and behavior, but the students wouldn't know how I put the groups together. The group setting provides an atmosphere of dialogue and interaction. More questions are asked and more answered. Scaffolding would occur between the students within each group and even between the groups. The learner would be motivated with a more hands-on, social approach. They would be able to visualize and experiment with one another. Finally, my favorite teaching model is the transformative teaching model. This would involve students in real-life situations, learning from each other, while the teacher facilitates the learning process. The students would actually transform their knowledge, construct, and create something entirely new. An example of this model would involve getting outside of the classroom and into the real world, such as a field trip. I would aspire to teach in this model as much as I could.
I like your direction, but with such a social atmosphere, how would you manage the classroom?
My classroom would be managed through creating joy. I learned that from Kessler. It is a motivator in the learning process. Joy would be experienced through a safe and social, sometimes playful, environment. Students would feel safe to share and make their own dialogue with one another. Vygotsky's scaffolding would generate motivation in completing tasks to reach certain goals. When necessary, operant conditioning would be used to reinforce positive and negative behaviors. This is how I managed the classroom when I taught in South Korea. I would create joy through interesting and interactive curriculum. The students would create dialogue with me or other students to scaffold off each other, and I would reinforce good behavior with rewards.
So how would your curriculum and instruction line up in ways that are consistent to your learning theory?
My curriculum would include individual and group assignments and activities. These activities would be dialogue and thought-provoking, such as journaling or class discussion. Hands-on experiments will allow the learner to visualize, such as giving them something to feel and to hold that relates to the subject. Structured play would be incorporated, like games, role play, simulations, and stories. Field work would be a huge component to give real-life experiences and situations. There would also be some information processing and memorization, such as learning a particular language. Behavioral objectives and skill development, like listening or learning how to throw a football, would be used. In my instruction, I will be more of a facilitator than a teacher. I will help steer the learner towards their own understanding of the content by engaging in a continuous dialogue. I will not only provide content, but act as a learner, listener, and observer. I will continuously assess to understand the whole learner. From there, I will set need-based goals to motivate. There will also be times where I would need to provide more direct instruction and positive reinforcement.
Well, Ryan, it was great to hear about your learning theory and how it will apply to your practice as a professional educator.
And thank you for taking the time to interview me. I know that I'm very passionate about teaching and really feel like I would be a great fit at this school. When will I hear from you?
Probably in the next week or two. We have a lot of interviews, but you did a great job. Take care.
Thanks again. Remember to enjoy King Estate.